straight from Boston. It's Founder Thought, the show that has everything from advice, ideas, and inspiration from founders and business owners that made it all happen.
On this episode, we speak with Dianne and Pamela, co-founders of Coils to Locs, a company disrupting a healthcare disparity by providing high-quality, coily, curly synthetic wigs to women of color suffering from hair loss.
Welcome to Founder Thought. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Today we're here with Dianne and Pamela from Coils to Locs. So we're going to let them introduce themselves and then we'll get started. So Dianne, why don't you get started? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you both for having us. I'm Dianne Austin, and I am the co-founder of Coils to Locs, which is a social impact for-profit business that's addressing a healthcare disparity that I know we'll talk more about a little later.
Great. And go ahead, Pamela, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pamela Shaddock. I am Dianne's sister. I'm going to say baby sister. And I am also co-founder of Coils to Locs. And Dianne, shared who we are. We're disrupting a healthcare disparity. And like she said, we'll dive more into that a little later.
And let me ask you guys, you are from Boston, yes?
We are born and raised in
Amazing.
Boston, in the
Go
neighborhood
Boston.
of Roxbury.
Amazing.
Yes, I actually am just moving back after 20 years of living in LA.
Oh, wow.
I'm getting reacclimated to Boston again.
Yeah, I had the same experience, actually. I lived out in Orange County for 10 years, so I came back. But you always come back to your roots, right?
You do.
All right. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your background? Let's start with you, Dianne.
Sure. So I have a background actually in human resources, diversity, and inclusion, and have spent my career prior to entrepreneurship in that space. And it's not like I'm out of that space. The plan is that I will be possibly in the future. But and as I mentioned, grew up here in Roxbury, had always been interested in business or just fascinated by the fact that people had businesses. I grew up in a working class neighborhood. Everyone, like from my parents and neighbors, probably had not just one job, but two jobs. So like a lot of hardworking people. And so I got to see that side of it, but I didn't know anyone that actually had a business. And that always fascinated me as a young child. So, fast forward, even though I moved into the field of human resources, I just always had a fascination with entrepreneurship and dabbled a little bit in entrepreneurship here and there until we founded this particular business.
Amazing.
Now, actually, Pamela, if you can tell us a little bit about your background, but I want to highlight for you guys, your sister. Yes, you said your sister, your baby sister. So
Yes.
when you talk about this, I want just to understand also the dynamic between both of you guys. When you start, did you think about when you're young, I'm going to have a business. We're going to have something together.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you quickly a little bit about me. I guess I've always kind of thought of myself as an entrepreneur. My background is in the entertainment industry, and the product is self. So I was always in that sort of mindset.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You've got to, and I don't know that I knew that initially, but at some point when I realized I had to learn, probably even more so than the performance side, the business side, in order to scale as an actress, I started thinking of myself more like an entrepreneur or being in business for myself. And so, I think Dianne and I both have, like she said, from childhood, she always thought about being an entrepreneur. We've always kind of been in that space and moved in that space, whether we knew it or not. Always. So my background is as an actor, as a performer, and because of Dianne's experience, where I'll let her share the business Coils to Locs was born of Diane's lived experience as a cancer survivor, and she may want to share more about that, and then we can sort of get into how Coils to Locs came about.
Amazing.
Amazing. So actually, I do have, because I watch actually a lot of video about you guys online. So I do have a question about how we start the business. So then, if you can start with what happened, the experience when you get the news, and when you start thinking about, you know what, I could turn this for a business. If you can start from there.
Sure. So, as you can imagine, when I was diagnosed with cancer, and that was in 2015, breast cancer, it was a devastating diagnosis. I thought I was healthy, and that everything was fine. And, when I learned through that diagnosis that part of the treatment would include chemotherapy, it also included radiation and surgery, I was told by my oncologist that I was going to lose all of my hair. It was just part of the chemotherapy treatment. And he asked me if I wanted a wig prescription. So this is like a whole new world for me. Like, I never heard of a wig prescription, and it literally looks like a regular prescription on a piece of paper. They call it a cranioprosthesis, which is a wig for medical hair loss. I knew that I wanted a wig. And so, armed with my wig prescription, he counseled me and said, check with your health insurance plan, because many health insurance plans cover the cost of wigs for medical hair loss. And mine's did, for up to $350. And so I was learning about this world of wig prescriptions and hospitals that actually sold wigs for medical hair loss. And so I started going to the hospitals looking for wigs that looked like my very tightly coiled hair. And all I found were straight-haired wigs, and my hair wasn't straight. And so I didn't want a straight-haired wig. I didn't want a wig just to get a wig. I wanted a wig that would help me look as much like myself as possible. Because what I learned through the process was that not only was I going to lose my hair, I was going to lose my eyebrows, my eyelashes, your skin changes colors. I wanted to really try to maintain as much of my sense of self as possible. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't want to look sick. And so it was just very frustrating for me to learn that I couldn't find a wig that looked like my hair in any cancer center hospital that had these wigs for medical hair loss. And so even at that point, I wasn't thinking about a business. But I was just really curious and frustrated. And while I was going through chemotherapy, I talked to my sister Pamela, and I said, she knew about these struggles. And I said, let's call across the country and just see, is this a Boston problem? Or is this, something else? And I actually thought, I'm sure these wigs are available in other locations. Like, I really just assumed it was like a Boston thing.
That they weren't?
But I discovered they were not.
Yes. I took the West Coast, she took the East Coast, and we just started making calls. And found that it was systemic. It really was a problem.
And let me ask you a question, just a little bit about that. So was it a wig problem, or it was these organizations that, or I'm not sure where you were getting the prescription from, but they were limited on their supply? Or was it more of just in general that just wasn't the style of hair that you were looking for?
It was not the style of hair. All of these retail cancer center hospitals, medical hair loss salons only provided straight-haired wigs. Or a slight wave type of wigs. Nothing that looks like my hair. Nothing that is the coily, curly hair types that Black women, how our hair grows. They just didn't have it anywhere. And so, and that's when the light bulb went off in my head. And it was like, and it was from the perspective of, this isn't right. There's too many people who need this service. I want to stop complaining because I was doing a lot of complaining about it, and I wanted to do
You're like, I want a
something about it.
solution.
Yes. And that's really how the business was born. And I said to Pamela, I want to start a business that addresses this issue. Will you help me? And she was like 110% on board.
Let me ask you, Dianne, how long is the procedure when you decide, you know what, I can make this as a business? When you decide, you know what, you're still in the chemo, you're still going through the process. When you decide to start, I can do this as a business.
So I waited until after I was done with all of my treatments because I came to that realization while I was literally in the middle of treatment. And so once my treatment ended, this started in like June of 2015 and ended I got my last treatment in February in terms of the cancer care. That's when I started.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah, I mean, we started doing some preliminary research on like manufacturing, different things like that. Like how do you source these wigs? How do you, we started doing little things like that, but we really didn't hit the ground running until then.
Right. So by then it was 2016, late February, early March 2016. And it was a 4-year process before we even launched the business in 2019. Because, it was an idea. I wanted to solve a problem, but it's not a space that Pamela and I were familiar with. So we spent 4 years really trying to understand just basic business 101.
So
manufacturing
Dianne,
and all of that.
If I can jump here, because this is actually what we are very interested on. So what the challenges was, because I know everybody come up with ideas, because I know a lot of people have multiple ideas, but really nobody take an action on it. So what make you guys take an action? What do you decide? Absolutely we are taking an action. We think this is something we can do. We think something we can achieve. And what I love about your story, and I want you guys to highlight this, it's you both of sister. So Dianne contact Pamela, you told her, I have this idea. Pamela, either way, she was in board. So I want to understand how this happened, and we would love to hear this.
Sure. It was just really this passion, this intense passion that I had and that Pamela had as, my sister, and seeing me going through what I was going through. Pamela was there with me when I was, she flew in from LA.
Yeah, I flew in from LA to help her find a wig. We decided, she wasn't able to use her health insurance because they only take them at these locations. So Dianne missed out on the resources that being at a cancer center provides and that sort of thing. So I flew in from LA because I knew wigs as an actress. I wore them.
Amazing.
So
good thing you had some of that experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I had never worn a wig before. At all,
so I flew in to help her with that piece of it. And then we just started, I would say, Dianne first, found out about some local Boston area incubator type programs, business incubators, just starting to educate ourselves on what it means to be in business. And so those were a huge, I think, first stepping stone to start to wrap our mind around what it's going to mean for us to really be in business.
Yeah. And that's actually a challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs face, right? So we talk with a lot of people about them having this idea. Like, I had this crazy idea, and they're great ideas, but they have no idea, unfortunately,
how to execute.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest challenges with being a business owner and maybe being an entrepreneur is you kind of have to just fumble your way and find your way through the process. And some people are able to do it a lot faster, and some people are, they take a different route where they do a lot of research and really get into the meat of what it's going to take before they can actually execute it. So it is a challenge that a lot of people face, for sure.
And
that was us.
Yeah.
And one thing, I saw one from your video online talking about 1 in 3 of Black women, they will have, if I'm not wrong about the statistic, 1 of 3 Black women will have cancer.
1 in 3 Black women.
Yes.
Yep. Will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime, according to the American Cancer Society.
So there is need for your product. That's why.
Yeah.
You're
And as we started,
absolutely yes.
yeah, there really is a need. And as we started doing that research, because, you know, to your point, Stephanie, we were the researchers.
Yeah.
We were like, how do we do this? Because we don't know what we don't know. We still say that you know,
Sure.
that's our mantra. We don't know what we don't know. Okay. How do we find out? What's the solution? And so, yeah, we started from that space for sure.
Okay.
And I wanted to add also in terms of the research is that we started finding out these things, right? 1 in 3. 46% of Black women in the U.S. are suffering from some form of medical or non-medical hair loss, whether it's through an autoimmune disease, so many things. So there was really, you know, we learned that there was really a space and a need for this, particularly at a time when Black women were wearing their hair more and more and embracing wearing their hair as it grows out of their head in its natural state and its coily, curly, Afro-textured state.
So now you guys decided to start this business. What was the idea? What first step you took? You open a corporation. You decide on your role. What's the first step you did, guys?
So the first steps, you know, began with the research, and then getting into, we knew that we needed to get into, or we felt that we did, either some type of pre-accelerator or accelerator program. The first one was a pre-accelerator program through TLC Consulting, which, you know, still is in existence today. And we did that through the Fairmont Innovation Lab in Dorchester. And then we moved on to take advantage of small business programming instruction through the Roxbury Innovation Center, which is part of Venture Cafe.
Sure.
I know they're connected. And so we, you know, participated in the different small business workshops. And in addition to that, took advantage of free services through SCORE. In Boston. And so would set up meetings. I'd meet with different mentors and different experts. And we did all of this 4 years from between 2016 and 2019 to really understand how to start a successful business, how to, you know, what is wig manufacturing all about? Where do you get the wigs? Where do you, you know, supply chain, inventory management? Like we really wanted to do this right. We weren't in a hurry to start it because we needed to understand
all the moving parts of it.
Because we just didn't understand, you know, and of course we learned. And when we felt like, you know, I can't say that we, you know, we're still learning, right? But we knew we got to a place.
Welcome to the entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Yes.
Always learning, forever learning.
But by 2019, we knew that we were ready to move forward. The biggest part for us, I think the business side was the easier part to understand and learn. You know, there are a lot of resources in Boston and a lot of free resources actually. And we tried to take advantage of all of them. But it was the, you know, where do you get these quality wigs? And our wigs are high quality synthetic wigs. That's what took the longest time for us.
And we were really picky about that. So we would get, once we started identifying the manufacturers, we would ask for samples, and then we'd have to wait for those samples to come. And it was either a yes or no, go back to the drawing board. So that was the process.
Yeah. We went through lots and lots of manufacturers and samples. And we have,
So do you design your own, or do you have, there's certain availabilities of different looks and styles that you choose from?
It's a combination.
Okay.
So we work with manufacturers that have design capabilities because we want to make sure that we are, you know, our wig styles are current. And so we work with those manufacturers that can produce samples for us based on our specifications.
So in those 4 years, guys, until you start the business, what one thing surprised you?
Oh boy, that's
good question.
It's It was a lot.
I know, my brain started swimming. I'm like, what? Pick one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the definitely finding, I don't know that we thought it would be so hard to really zero in on a manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but Dianne, but that was definitely like, wow, this is a process, and this is what supply, going through, navigating through a supply chain, definitely was like, wow, was such a learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we learned in the wig space that it's very, secretive probably isn't the word, but it's closed off. It's nobody wants to share, and now we understand why, and we're sort of in that space. Nobody wants to share what manufacturers they're using.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to keep them edge.
Yeah, it's like it's this closed door society. That was like one of the biggest challenges to really finding out, like, we know that these quality wigs are being made, but who's making them, right? And where are they getting, where are the U.S. wig manufacturers that are distributing wigs to hospitals, where are they getting their wigs?
Yeah.
That question sounds like an easy question, but it was really, I think, the biggest challenge that we had, the biggest surprise.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing would be, I personally was surprised at how receptive a lot of the hospitals were to our wig line once we got to the point of approaching hospitals. And I think it was, I think timing is everything in a good and bad way. I mean, we started the business a few months before the pandemic. So it was the end of 2019, and then the pandemic hit and all the hospitals shut down. But that was another challenge that we're happy to talk about. But hospitals, we were recognizing that they had an issue in terms of not being able to provide products, in this case, these what we like to call ethnically inspired wigs, that they were lacking and not being able to meet the needs of all of their patients. So we were learning that this was an issue of concern, not just for like the retail managers of these cancer center stores, but the oncologists and the patient advocates and the nurse practitioners who were doing the infusions with their patients, and of course the patients themselves. We learned how big of an issue this was, and so we knew we were onto something. I knew it wasn't just me. So that was a surprise.
So this is actually what I do have. I love to hear you, Virginia. When you figure out you have something.
What was that moment
like,
that you knew that like this is something? Something big. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we started getting feedback from the end user, the patients and the customers, just even beyond the cancer space. So as through focus groups, like we did focus groups and things like that, to sort of figure out what the customer wanted, what the customer needed, and that sort of thing. And as our brand started getting out there, we started hearing from all types of women who are suffering from some sort of hair loss. Like, I didn't have cancer. I'm not losing my hair, for those reasons, but I have this, I have that. I have hair loss because I'm aging, whatever it was. We recognize, how large a need there was for what we were doing. And I'm sure, Dianne, you can think of some other things as I'm downloading.
Yeah, no, I think that was like the big thing was like all of the feedback that we were getting from women who were emailing us and saying, thank you for starting this business. People, thank us for doing this and ask, can you see if you can get your wigs in the hospital where I'm being treated, or my mother needs a wig like yours. How can I get it?
Yeah.
Right now we're selling the wigs B2B, but we will be launching a B2C online store where we'll sell a different line of wigs curated specially for, the online audience, so that we're not competing with our hospital vendors in terms of wigs.
Yeah.
But that's when we knew, just based on all of the feedback from women who needed these products and clinicians and others who were supporting those women in those spaces.
So now you work together. So now how you decide which role you're gonna on because listen, me and Stephanie, we partner together. We husband and wife together. So we work together. We've been married for 19 years. So it's not an easy to partnership. So now how guys you partner, how you make decision, how you come up, you know what? No, I want to move this direction. I want to do this direction. How you deal with this stuff?
Well, she's the older, bossier sister. So no, I'm kidding.
That makes it easy.
Maybe not, but
yeah, no, I'm teasing. But I think based on it being Diane's experience and her having that light bulb moment or whatever, it's like, boom, she's CEO. We're co-founders, but title-wise, she's CEO. I'm president and, of everything, I think, and everything else. But as sisters, we grew up, we're close in age, actually, and we grew up sharing a room together. Like, we know each other like the back of our hands. We almost finish each other's sentences half the time. And we really do think alike. And so we haven't clashed a lot. We don't always agree, but, we know how to talk through it.
Yeah.
I know how to, sort of speak to her in a way that I can get to her with my idea and vice versa.
Yeah.
So there isn't a lot of friction. Not that everything, we're siblings. So, everything's not rosy all the time, But I would say, 98% of the time, Dianne?
I would say so. Yeah, we work really well together. And
That's
I think,
amazing.
Amazing.
yeah.
You don't
and I
see that a
think
lot. So you definitely have something very special. So that's great. You don't see that a
Thank you.
lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of challenges. Like we talk to a lot of different, co-founders, different types of relationships and different types of dynamics, and it can get really messy. So that's great
we
that
hear
you
that
have.
too.
Yeah.
we do hear that.
Yeah, I've heard that from people. They're like, I could never work with my sister. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we don't have that issue.
Yeah.
No.
That's great.
So now, Pamela, what's the number one you discover about Dianne? You didn't know before. When you start working the guys through this, one thing you discover?
About Dianne?
Yeah.
That Dianne is very, very particular. I was going to say the A word, but I won't say anal. But no.
Well, you just said it.
I just said it. But no, she thinks a lot more linear than I do, I think. And maybe, being an actress and in the entertainment industry, I'm a little more sort of like this and this and this.
Yeah.
And she's very structured in her thinking, which I appreciate actually, because her thinking, she zeroes in on the thing. Whereas I'm like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, you know, but she's really analytical, and I didn't know to what degree till we started working together.
And I would say, yes, no, I think you're spot on. And, conversely, as Pamela shared, like Pamela has more of that, like that creative brain. And so like she's really good in that space where I'm just like, I think what she said, I'm just very analytical and
So this one brings me for this one. Pamela, probably you came up with this tagline, more than a wig. What does this mean?
More than just a wig?
Yeah,
I did come up with that tagline.
Yeah, so, okay, clear.
Yes.
She did. Yes, she did.
Well, just in conversations, and it just hit me one day, right? We were talking about all of the ways that we are being impactful as a social impact business. And I, just said yes, because we're more than just a wig. And we both went, oh, that's our tagline.
Yeah. Because, what we think some people don't understand if they've never experienced medical hair loss, or any type of hair loss that is beyond their control, that, wigs are not a vanity product. They're not, women who, in particular, who are going through hair loss don't want a wig because, just because, for aesthetic reasons. It helps with your sense of self, your dignity. It helps you to be able to look in the mirror and say, I recognize that person. I like what I see, because the physical changes that you go through, even if you're, not experiencing chemotherapy, but, medical hair loss, we live in a society where beauty is revered and hair is revered. And then even within the Black culture, you can whittle that down even more. Hair is everything. Like you might see me with my hair like this Afro look today, but tomorrow I might have braids. You know what I mean? It's like we change our hair up. Like hair is a big deal.
Yeah.
It represents our personality. And when you lose it, that can be devastating. So for us, it is, our wigs are more than just a wig. It's really just that connection that people want, is particularly in the medical hair loss space for those women who want wigs, because not everyone wants a wig, but it allows them to maintain their sense of self, their cultural sense of self, their personality, those types of things. So.
Yeah, amazing. I can imagine, because for me, like my hair is like my signature piece. So if I had a situation where I had, lost my hair, I could understand that could be very, it would change the way that you, sort of feel and look. And so, I would imagine that's very important to have that back so that you can, hold on to that self. So
let me ask you guys, do you have any comparator? Do you have any comparator in this medical wig? Do you have, because I think your product is very unique, because if I'm understanding, you did research, you didn't find anybody does like wavy wig or Pacific wig for, so you didn't find anybody. So do you have any comparator?
So in terms of the U.S. wig manufacturers that are prominent in this medical hair loss space, they could be considered our competitors if they sold these wigs. They don't sell these wigs. Like at first we were like, well, they've got to, but we were hearing from the managers, retailers in these cancer center and medical hair loss spaces. We've been looking for these wigs for a long time. We've not been able to find them. And you see that they clearly deal with different manufacturers. And they would say that, the distributors that they use do not provide this type of wig style. So it's, in terms of the mass-produced level of these coily, curly wigs in medical hair loss spaces, we have not been able to find any competitors in the space. Now, it's not like these wigs don't exist. You have like people who are custom wig makers who may make these wigs, but they're making those wigs one at a time. You can find these types of wigs in some beauty supply stores in communities of color, but they may not be, and oftentimes they're not of the same quality as our wigs. But in the medical hair loss wig distribution space, in terms of that space, we don't seem to have any competitors, and we've been able to just confirm that based on conversation.
So do you think this was an advantage for you guys? Because when Dianne, you said you were surprised how much was easy to get in the hospital. Do you think this was an advantage for this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that those competitors can't come in once they realize what they've been missing, whether it's from a financial aspect or whatever, because we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry, that they can't sort of kind of swoop in and start to take it. But we, at that point, will be the leading distributor in that space. So we're not worried about them.
So now
I have a question about the distribution piece of it. Yeah. So I wanted to ask, so this is a challenge that a lot of small business owners and up and coming and entrepreneurs and things, where they have a product and now they're trying to distribute it, right? So how did you approach these different, hospitals or other, places that you're distributing to, how did you approach them? How did it sounded like you got, really great reception, but like, what was that process, and how did you learn that you needed to do that process?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think I had somewhat of an advantage, and it was a small advantage. My career in human resources and diversity and inclusion has primarily been in the hospital space. So I was aware of, some things I wasn't aware of. Like I didn't know, like, hospitals didn't sell these types of wigs. I knew that we had retail stores and things like that.
Yeah.
But I could figure out who to talk to. And so I think that was a big advantage for me. Like, I knew hospitals have these types of people who do this type of thing for the hospital. So let me start there.
Right.
And so I had that inside knowledge, but it didn't mean it was necessarily easy, but at least I knew who to talk to. I mean, it was easy in the sense that the first 3 hospitals that we approached, and we consider ourselves in the pilot stage right now. We're about to move out of that stage. We have about 12 or 13 hospitals and medical salons that are carrying our wigs right now. And of course, we planned on, we will be expanding that significantly in the next 12 months because we've been able to do that proof of concept piece.
Yep.
But what I found was, the first few hospitals, it was, they understood that, they had this patient population, like they were able to speak to the fact that they had patients that were looking for these wigs. And so it was a timing thing. It just seemed like I reached out at the right time for the first few hospitals. And then, we had some hospitals that were reaching out to us when they learned about us. So that made it easy. But then as we're starting to move towards actually doing the actual sales, like cold calling kind of sales, our approach is that we, are addressing a need that's not being met. We know that we can speak to that because, we know these, many of these hospitals aren't meeting the need, and that we can help them to provide the best product and service for their patients by expanding their wig line to provide these wigs to women who are interested in them. And we're able to talk about that interest based on the feedback that we get, based on the focus groups that we have done. And so it resonates with people because we're telling them what they already know. So I think that's what has made it a little easy. And they've, liked our wigs. Like
I'm sure that
inspect
probably
them.
helps.
That helps a lot.
Wig versus just, something. It probably
the
makes
quality,
a
they like the quality. And, they've said in meetings, like they've had their wig fitters come and inspect the wigs in the middle of a meeting, and so, and they're asking them, so, how is it? And they're like, oh, this is good quality. It's really well made. It's just,
Right.
So that's the other piece of it as well.
And I would also add that, an advantage too is we're talking from a lived experience, not only, we're not just selling these wigs. We are the customer. Yeah. In addition to Dianne's hair loss through chemotherapy, I suffer from traction alopecia. So, I can, we both can speak to that piece of it as because we are the end user as well. I wear wigs more than Dianne, but
yeah.
So
I couldn't wait to not wear a wig once my hair grew back because, that might be odd to say as, a wig seller, but it was true because for me personally, it was like, it reminded me of my cancer. So when my hair did grow back, I was like, well, I don't know if I'll wear too many wigs.
Yeah, and I don't think that's odd to say because women who can grow their hair back after suffering from losing their hair to chemotherapy, we want that for them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we'll never be without a customer because 1 in 3, and we're just talking about Black women, there are other women with other ethnicities who have highly textured hair as well. Black and brown women, there are Jewish women who have highly textured, kinky hair type, who will suffer through cancer, some sort of hair loss, medical or non-medical. So those who can grow their hair back, we want that for them,
Yeah.
So,
Of course.
So what guys you see as a business in the next 2 years?
Well, we definitely, one of the things that is really at the top of our list in that time frame is to take control of the wig manufacturing. We want control of the manufacturing. We want to manufacture our own wigs. So we're exploring that piece of it. We're just beginning to explore that and what it takes to do that. So that'll be a lot of research, I'm sure. We want to, we definitely plan on expanding from the 13 pilot hospitals to the many hospitals around the country. And we're in conversations with hospitals regularly in regards to our wigs. We will be launching our e-commerce site. We do also want to expand our wig line to men and children as well.
So when you launch, I'm sorry, questioning, when you launch the online, is this going to be for medical or is going to be for anybody can buy it? For medical reason or anybody can buy it?
Anybody can buy it. So, we'll still be targeting women with hair loss because that's our mission. That's, that's where we live. But anybody who wants a wig can buy the wig. If they just want a wig for aesthetic reasons, because they're like me and they like wearing wigs, it's open for anybody to buy.
Amazing.
And let me ask you about the wig because actually it's something I'm like, sounds like very interesting thing for me. Now, when you put the wig, do you people tell it's a wig? Because if I lost my hair in the future, so I need to prevent
I'm
myself
pretty sure
from now.
you're not losing your hair, Oz.
But it does look like a wig. Like, do you tell it's a wig or you don't tell a wig? Because I'm really not sure about this.
Go ahead, Pamela.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, not really. No, because I actually wore one of our wigs at an event. I did a pitch showcase, and I had the wig on, and I didn't tell people to the end of my pitch that yes, and it looks just like this wig I'm wearing,
wow.
and people were shocked that I had on a wig.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, people started. They were like, so that says it all.
Yeah.
That says it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have one question too. I wanted to understand. So I know you talked about the different resources and things that you had early on when you were doing research and things like that. But beyond that, was there other resources and other maybe people along the way that had helped, or other ways that you found that you had resources and help and things like that beyond the initial centers and things like that?
Absolutely. There are individuals. There's one individual, and we're going to give him a shout out by name. His name is Barnett Sherman, who is our ongoing business advisor. I met Barnett. I had done a pitch competition in 2019, and the director of that organization, the Roxbury Innovation Center, was on a panel, and he talked about the work in the small business space and mentioned my business by name, or our business by name. Barnett Sherman is a writer for Forbes.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted to meet us. And our very first article came from him. He wrote an article on our business that was on Forbes, the Forbes website, and that got us a lot of exposure. But he made it his mission to to advise us, to mentor us. And so we meet with him on a regular basis for the last several years. He's just been extremely helpful to us in terms of our work.
Amazing.
Another organization that sought us out was Big Fish Communications, a PR firm on Newberry Street, and they offered us a year of pro bono PR services and really supported us.
Yeah.
And we're still in touch with them, and getting that type of support. People like Trisha Shaw with TLC Consulting here in, I think it's out of Newton, but she does a lot of work in Boston in terms of supporting small business, has been a wonderful advisor. There's been just so many people who have gone out of their way to provide us resources and an ear.
And guidance and support and
That's great.
networking, relationships, leading us to other beneficial relationships. It's just really been amazing, you know. Yeah.
That's great. All right. So I guess we'll, do you guys have anything else, anything you want to share with,
Maybe we can, find
anything you want to share with us, any final thoughts, and then please tell us where folks can get a hold of you or they can get in touch.
Yeah, definitely. I would sort of reiterate just really getting connected, seeing what's going on in your community. There's so much support out there, no matter where you live, whether it's a small business association, like find out, and a lot of free stuff, as Dianne said. If you're interested in starting a business, if you've got an idea, so many will take you at the idea stage, but just really get involved, network. I mean, some of those early relationships have just been the gift that keeps on giving for us. Doing pitch competitions, that's how we, got connected to Barnett with Forbes and, that sort of thing. Just get yourself out there, take action on your ideas, even if it fails. Like you said, you've had, 10 ideas and half of them failed or whatever. You'll never know if you don't take action. So just take action on your ideas.
Amazing.
And I would say, I know it sounds cliche, but, definitely you have to persevere and just keep at it. Because it's, I guess there are some businesses that became successful in really short periods of time. But when we started this business, we didn't know, whether there'd be an interest in our business or not. We just had a passion to provide this service. And so sometimes it may take, you might have to go down a long road to get where you need to go. And for us, that road was like a 4-year road before we even launched. It may be only 6 months for someone else. I don't know. But, I don't think success or, what you see as success happens overnight.
It takes time. Time.
It definitely does.
If you want substance success, take time.
Yep. So tell us where if someone wants to get in touch with you or learn a little bit more, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find us at our website, coilstolocs.com, and that's COILSTOLOCS. No K in there. coilstolocs.com. We're on all the social media platforms at Coils to Locs. Instagram is the only sort of change. It's Coils to Locs Wigs on Instagram. Anywhere else, it's just Coils to Locs, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And soon to be our e-commerce online store, but just follow us, opt into our email list to stay up to date on what we're doing. And yeah.
Amazing.
That's pretty much it.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us. This is a very wonderful conversation, very educational and informational. So we really appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to Founder Thought. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to podcasts or on the web at founderthought.com. Founder Thought is a production of Pepper Gang.